I mean, what we focused on in this report is something that we call the credit impulse, and it's really comes from the idea that it's the flow of new borrowing that really matters for GDP, and therefore for GDP growth, it's the change in that flow. And we're seeing that new borrowing in India this financial year is probably going to be some 3 percentage points weaker than it was in the previous financial year. So that's going to be a real headwind for growth. Now, we've had a very weak number for Q2 calendar 2019, and all the indicators are actually that the third quarter of the calendar year is not looking any better, and the assumptions in our 5.5 number for the year as a whole already assume that there's a bit of a pickup. So even though we're pretty below consensus, pretty far below consensus on growth, there might even be a downside risk to our own forecasts.
Okay. Brian, so put differently, essentially what you're saying is the money supply to the economy is weak. And it's interesting to see that if you look at the base money component, that is actually growing relatively fast. So the problem seems to be with the money multiplier, and that comes down to financial sector capacity. Is that also a way to think about it?
Absolutely. I think a big issue here has been the problems in the shadow banking sector. The non-bank financial institutions have really reined in their credit growth because they've seen a problem with their own funding. And what it seems to be happening is that we're learning that these institutions were particularly important for credit growth in sectors of the economy with a high multiplier to spending. So when you look at the NBFI lending, it supported the real estate sector. That's been very important for rural employment, and as that's been retrenched, we are seeing that those sectors of the economy, have reined back on their lending. So indicators of rural demand, such as two-wheeler sales, tractor sales, have fallen quite sharply. And I think that's where the role of the NBFIs as the marginal suppliers of credit to the economy in the last few years has actually been very powerful. And as that's unwinding, we're seeing that impact on demand in quite a strong way.